Hello, everyone. Yeah, sorry I'm a bit late. Um, Anything to say at the beginning, Rami? We'll just jump right in.
Welcome everyone. Great to have you here, and I hope you enjoy. And other than that, you can just jump right in, Geshe.
Okay, great. All right. Well, let's spend a moment to set our motivation first. Yeah. So why don't we spend a minute in silence, just focusing our attention, checking in with our own mind, kind of to see how we are, where we're at right now mentally. And then if you like, focus your attention on your breath or the nature of the mind or another object, just to focus, generate some focused awareness. And then to generate a motivation for this session. So it's always good to visualize, do the visualization of the four immeasurable thoughts, or when we meditate on Tonglen. So visualize oneself surrounded by all sentient beings, beginning with your mother of this life, to your left and behind you, and all your female friends, family, and those who support you, to your left and behind you, and then to your right, your father of this life, and all your male friends and family, and others who support you, whom you have a natural affinity for. So imagine them present in the space with you and remember your interconnectedness with them. And then those whom you have the most difficulty with, oftentimes the same people, those whom you're most prone to become angry or irritated with, or to generate a negative mind towards, then picture sitting just in front of you at a comfortable distance facing towards you to remind us to make special effort to practice Dharma in relation to them. And then imagine all the other sentient beings that exist in the world, human beings, animals, beings of the six realms, in any world with system whatsoever. Imagine them all in human form, seated all around us as vast as space. So then we can remember perhaps that all these sentient beings are objects of the Buddha's compassion. They're the beings, all of these beings, and including us, are the ones for whom the Shakyamuni Buddha came to this world and taught the Dharma, as well as all the countless Buddhas before him, and all those who come into the future. They practiced the Bodhisattva path, generated the realizations on the path, and then appeared and taught the Dharma exclusively in order to free us and all other sentient beings from suffering, and to lead us to the state of perfect fulfillment of our highest potential. And then especially as well as His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Kyabje Lama's Zopa Rinpoche, their entire purpose of existing is in order to benefit all these countless sentient beings. So especially this session, looking at this prayer, chanting the names of Manjushri, which many of us in FPMT are involved in, are trying to do, to as much to our ability during this time when His Holiness the Dalai Lama has given this instruction that, it's something that we should do as students of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, we should do in order to create the conditions for Rinpoche to show the aspect of um, reincarnating and to be able to unmistakably identify the reincarnation, and then also, for a student, for us to engage again in a student disciple relationship, and for Rinpoche's reincarnation to be of greatest possible benefit to sentient beings. It's important to do this practice of chanting the names of Manjushri right now, at this time for the next few months, and then possibly, after that. So in this session, when we're looking at some of the things about the qualities of this prayer, then it's important to remember the whole, purpose of the Buddhist teachings, purpose of um, the lives of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and especially Lama Zopa Rinpoche, their wish to benefit beings, and then ourselves try to generate a similar aspiration, that in order to be of the greatest possible benefit and service to other sentient beings, then may we ourselves quickly become fully enlightened. And for that purpose, I'll engage in this session. So to whatever degree that, or some other motivation makes sense and has power, then generate a positive motivation for the session. And then we can recite Shakyamuni Buddha's name mantra. So it's Shakyamuni Buddha himself who taught this tantra, chanting the names of Manjushri, this prayer. So we can recite his name mantra 3 times as a way of going for refuge in the Buddha Dharma Sangha and evoking the blessings of the Buddha. Taya ta muni maha viso taya ta muni maha amanai viso taya ta muni maha viso. Okay, so that's a bit of preliminaries. Yeah, so this session this week, and then also next week, and I think I'll probably want to go for a couple more sessions after that. Yeah, depending how much detail I want to explain the chanting the names of Manjushri. Anyway, so we're looking at this prayer, chanting the names of Manjushri, and I'll go ahead and share my screen. I wasn't. I should probably do again. Actually, let me adjust it on my computer first and then share it. I didn't have a chance to put it together in nice PowerPoint slides yet, maybe for next week. But I made a kind of rough outline of what to go through. So where are we? So yeah, largely tonight, we'll see how far we get, but we'll start off looking at some of the qualities of this prayer, the chanted names of Manjushri. And then looking at the benefits of reciting it. That's especially from Lama Zopa's instructions. And then how to actually practice reciting the text, some advice, and then how to conclude the recitation. We'll just look at briefly, and then actual explanation of the text, of the different aspects of the text. I don't think it's quite long, right? So I don't plan to go through every line, line by line, verse by verse, but rather I thought it'd be helpful just to look at some of the main sections to kind of have an idea of the structure of the tantra, and then look at some of the key verses that kind of really show the essential meanings. So we'll just start to get into the text today if kind of goes as planned. So for the research, what I've been reading, there are I've drawn mainly from one short talk by Samdol Rinpoche about chanting the names of Manjushri on the occasion of a new publication of the prayer in Tibetan that was based on the existing Sanskrit versions. So Samdol Rinpoche gave some of the remarks about it. And then some Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you might have seen in the FPMT email list. It's in the newsletter that was just sent out, I believe. Lama Zopa Rinpoche in 2007 in New York gave just some very brief comments about it. And then Rinpoche gave the oral transmission of the prayer. And so that's available on the FPMT, actually Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive website. There's a link in the FPMT website. So I took some of the advice, especially about how to actually practice chanting the name, from Rinpoche's advice. As always, Rinpoche gives the most extensive advice about how to actually do the practice. Other commentaries, and then there's, whereas other commentators, they more focus on the meaning, the benefits of the prayer, and then the meaning of the verses. But Rinpoche gives very extensive advice about how to actually do the practice when you sit down to recite the names. So I took some advice from there. But then mainly what I'm using a commentary by the 37th Ganatripa. His name is Gendun Rinchen Gyaltsen. I never heard of him before, but when I was searching, there's quite a few commentaries on this practice, chanting the names of Manjushri, because it's very common in all four traditions of Tibetan Buddhism, in the Nyingma, Sakya, Kagyu, Geluk. All four schools consider it as very sacred, and many lamas recite it regularly. And so over the generations, there's been many commentaries written on it. Among the Geluk scholars, the most well-known and most extensive commentary is by Gyawa Gendun Drup, I believe. I'll check in a minute. But the commentary itself is like over 300 pages long. Then there's another commentary by Kachin Yeshi Gelsen, which is also about 250 pages long. And frankly, like, I don't have time to read that much commentary right now. And then probably most of you don't have time to listen to that much of a detailed commentary on each line, each verse of the entire prayer. So I found a nice 65-page commentary, which is kind of the essence of the chanting names of Manjushri. And this is by this scholar, actually is from Sera Monastery, who I never heard of before, but he was the 37th Ganatripa. Now, what's the current Ganatripa? It's like the 102nd or 3rd, I forget, but it's over 100. 104th. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Yeah. So that was about the 37th Ganatripa. So he has a very nice short commentary, but reading it from the beginning, I found very inspiring and very nice. So we'll start to get into that a bit today, I expect. Okay, so I'll share my screen and mainly this is really for me to read, but then there's some extracts, so it's good if you can also see. Okay, so first, some of the qualities of this text. So Samdol Rinpoche says, this is the root and the essence of all the tantras. And oftentimes you see chanting the names of Manjushri, actually it's a tantra, right? So from the Mahayana Sutra Yana and the Mahayana Tantra Yana, it's part of the Tantra Yana, right? And actually it comes from a larger tantra. So it's not a sutra per se, it's a tantra, but it was spoken by Shakyamuni Buddha at the same place where the Buddha taught the Kalachakra Tantra in current day, Amaravati, which I believe is still in Andhra Pradesh. But Andhra Pradesh, the state in South India, was recently divided in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. But I believe Amaravati is still part of Anyway, His Holiness gave a Kala Chakra initiation there in like 2006. So it's in that place where this Tantra was taught. So Samdara Rinpoche says it's the essence, the root and the essence of all the tantras. So what I was saying is actually, you oftentimes hear the Guhya Samaja Tantra spoken of in that way. Um, that it's by understanding the Guhya Samaja Tantra contains the essence of all the tantras. So, and it's called the king of tantras for that reason, because if you understand the Guhya Samaja Tantra well, then it said you can understand all of the other tantras. So, in a similar way, it's the chanting names of Manjushri that's spoken about, said that it contains the essential meaning of all the tantras. So there's two varieties of commentaries on this chanting names of Manjushri. Some interpret it as being of the four classes of tantra, being part of the yoga class, but others consider it part of the highest yoga tantra class. So in Tibetan Buddhism, though, especially in the Gelugpa, it seems most of the commentaries are according to highest yoga tantra, considering it as a highest yoga tantra. You can see one of the verses below, it mentions Vrajabharava, which is Yamantaka. But here, as a support for Samdara Rinpoche saying that is the essence and root of all the tantras, he quotes from first from verse 41, the last two lines of verse 41 in the chanting names of Manjushri. So it might be good, for you all listening at home, which is all of you, because it's only on Zoom, to actually open up, if you have your laptop computer, either watching it or you have nearby, to open up your copy of the chanting names of Manjushri that you're using, and then mark up, highlight your copy so that you can, as you're reading it, and I encourage you to read it at least once a day, to create a connection, to create the cause for Rinpoche to show unmistaken, reincarnation, and to create the cause to have a connection with him. But as you're reading it, however often you do, then to remember a bit some of the important lines and verses. So first, Samdara Rinpoche quotes these two lines saying, traversing well the Mahayana's path, himself the Mahayana's foremost way. Right. So this is speaking about Manjushri and the qualities of Manjushri, saying that, yeah, he himself has traversed the entire Mahayana path, meaning he's a fully enlightened being. And himself is himself the Mahayana's foremost way. So the foremost in the Mahayana, this Mahayana Sutrayana, Mahayana Tantrayana. So within those, of course, Tantrayana is considered supreme. So it's kind of like saying he's considered, the the essence. I mean, this is the way Samdara Rinpoche is interpreting it to mean that this Manjushri himself, and then this teaching about Manjushri expresses the essence of, the pinnacle of the Mahayana teachings, which is the highest yoga tantra. And then in verse 114, he quotes that saying, with great endeavors as illusory nets. So remember, the illusory net is the name of the larger tantra, of which this is the one chapter, the final chapter, I believe. So this chanting the names of Manjushri is actually one chapter of a much larger teaching. I think it has something like 28 chapters. But I'm not sure that larger tantra is called the illusory net tantra. It'll come up later. It's mentioned somewhere in the prayer, and it's mentioned in the colophon as well. Yeah. Also, if I make any mistakes, because some things, I'm not very familiar with this prayer or commentaries on this prayer. So if there's something I say that's mistaken, then please point it out immediately and I'll correct it. Like illusory net, I think that's the name of the larger text, but I'm not 100% sure. Why don't I check here? I have my copy open. I'll just check the colophon. I'll make sure I get it right. Yeah, no, the net of illusion. It's translated in the colophon as the net of illusion. So also just to mention here, I'm just remembering, there are several different translations of this text. So how do I close this up now? When I do share screen, then I start getting confused about how things work on my desktop. There's the main translations. There's one by the one that, okay, after. that I'm looking at is seems to be is kind of the official FPMT ones, the one they sent out, and it's translated by Ryan Conlon. Um, but there's a I think that's a more recent translation. I like the way it reads quite well, but I know other people are more familiar maybe with the older ones. There's also a translation by Alexander Berzin, and there's a translation by someone named Ronald Dawson. So I'm using the Ryan Conlon version translation. Okay, but here in this verse, so from verse 114, it says, with endeavors as illusory nets, no, with great endeavors as illusory nets, the foremost master ruling every tantra, endowed in full with every vajra posture, completely furnished with all wisdom bodies. Right. So again, it's saying it's the foremost master ruling every tantra. So sort of saying this is the foremost among the tantras, expresses the essence of all the tantras, endowed and full with every vajra posture. I'm not sure exactly. I haven't looked that up in Tibetan, but maybe we'll come to it later what that means. But it seems to mean kind of every aspect of the Vajrayana, completely furnished with all wisdom bodies. So here maybe you know within the four bodies of a Buddha, right? There's the two form bodies and the two truth bodies. So the form bodies have more to do with the way an enlightened being appears in order to benefit sentient beings. Right? There's the enjoyment body, which appears only to high-level bodhisattvas, and then there's the emanation bodies, which appears to ordinary beings like us. So that's the two form bodies, and then there's the two truth bodies. So within the two truth bodies, there's the Buddha's own nature of being empty of inherent existence. The emptiness of the Buddha's mind and body. So that's the what is it? Nature truth body. Niku. So the nature essence body or the nature truth body, the Buddha's emptiness of inherent existence. And then there's the Geshe Choku, the wisdom truth body or the exalted wisdom truth body. So, and of course, the two main aspects of a Buddha's enlightened mind are wisdom, directly or perceptually knowing ultimate truth, knowing emptiness, and then great compassion. So here it's saying completely furnished with all wisdom bodies. So it's important to remember at the outset, this prayer, chant the names of Manjushri, it's basically a tantra in which Vajrapani, this is great bodhisattva, Vajrapani requests Shakyamuni Buddha to express the names of Manjushri. And in essence, what Shakyamuni Buddha does in his reply, he agrees to do that. And then he expresses all these different qualities of Manjushri. So, of course, Manjushri is the Buddha of wisdom. Just like Avalokiteshvara Chenrezig is the Buddha of compassion, Tara is the Buddha of the Buddha's enlightened activities. So different Buddhas are kind of personifications of different aspects of all the enlightened beings' qualities. So Manjushri is considered an embodiment or a personification of the Buddha's wisdom. So that's why, of course, it makes sense there to say he's completely furnished with all the wisdom bodies, meaning, Manjushri is kind of like the essence of all the, this aspect of the Buddha's being, his mind, enlightened mind, realizing emptiness, specifically that aspect, realizing ultimate truth, which is really the heart of, all of the Buddha's teachings, because the root of samsara is ignorance, grasping at inherent existence. Then all of the Buddha's teachings are leading us to generate the wisdom, realizing dependent arising and selflessness, emptiness, which eliminates that wisdom, that ignorance, which is the root of suffering. So Manjushri is an embodiment of that wisdom, especially the wisdom realizing emptiness. Whereas Chenrezig or Avalokiteshvara is an embodiment of the compassion side or the method side of the Buddha's enlightened mind, great compassion, right? Yeah. So then Samdara Rinpoche goes on to say that this chanting names of Manjushri was taught by, it's something taught by all the Buddhas of the past, present, and future. So as is the case with many Mahayana sutras and tantras, it's said that, it's not that this, like in the Golden Light Sutra, I'm sure it says, um, that it's not that this teaching was given just once by Shakyamuni Buddha in this world system, but like this very teaching, and it doesn't mean necessarily word for word, but the essential meaning of what's being expressed is something taught by all the countless past Buddhas, by all the countless Buddhas in the present in different world systems, and will be taught by all Buddhas in the future. So that's also said of this prayer, chant the names of Manjushri, where in verse 11 and 12, and I believe, let's check, I believe these both are in part of the request. Um, Yeah, because the reply by Shakyamuni Buddha. So Shakyamuni Buddha only starts speaking in the Tantra from verse 17. So these two verses, 11 and 12, are spoken by Vajrapani, right? Uh, just my. So in the request, Vajrapani himself is already kind of expressing qualities of um, of this teaching, of this Tantra. And he says, the wisdom deity called Manjushri, these names Yeah. These names with meaning both profound and vast. So profound and vast, of course, is referring to the two aspects of the path, the profound wisdom, understanding emptiness, and the vast deeds, meditation on compassion, and then practicing the first five of the six perfections, generosity, ethics, patience, meditative concentration, and joyous perseverance. So these names with meaning both profound and vast, of great significance, unmatched, serene, with goodness at their start, middle, and end, proclaimed by all Buddhas of the eons past, and to be taught by Buddhas yet to come, and taught not once, but time and time again by all the Buddhas of the present age. Right? So there, Vajrapani is saying of this prayer, this teaching that he's requesting, that this is something that's been taught by all the Buddhas of the past. It's being taught by all the Buddhas of the present, and will be taught by all the Buddhas who will come in the future. So it gives this kind of timeless um, sense of importance of the prayer. It's another way of expressing the greatness and the importance of this teaching. And then Sundar Rinpoche goes on to support that, the importance of the prayer, that he says, without understanding this text, one cannot understand the path of highest yoga's tantra completely. So he's saying understanding the meaning of this prayer is essential to understanding, the teachings at the pinnacle of the Buddhist teachings, highest yoga tantra. And then he gives two quotations from that. One is from, well, he says Dawa Zampo. So one from the Stainless Light Great Commentary on the Kala Chakra. So there's a special connection between the chanted names of Manjushri and Kala Chakra. Mainly, I don't really understand it well, but what I can glean is that because it was taught to the same audience, right? These kings of Shambhala, they were both the audience who received these tantric teachings in the, what is it, the Drepung, in the great stupa in Amaravati in South India. Okay, so from this commentary on the Kalachakra Tantra, the Stainless Light Great Commentary, then the author of that, Dao Zampo, says, and this is very impressive, whoever does not understand chanting the names of Manjushri does not understand the exalted wisdom body of a Vajra holder, means one who upholds and has realized, the stages of the tantric path. Whoever does not understand the body of a Vajra holder does not understand the mantrayana, right? The Vajra vehicle. Whoever does not understand the mantrayana will circle in samsara because they will be bereft of the path of the Bhagawan Vajradhara. Yeah, so just to read that again, clearly this is where the connection comes, because chanting the names of Manjushri is spoken about in I'm not sure in the Kala Chakra root tantra, but definitely in this commentary on it. So he says, whoever does not understand chant the names of Manjushri does not understand the exalted wisdom body of a Vajra holder. Right? So remember, the exalted wisdom body, remember, Manjushri is the embodiment of the wisdom of all the Buddhas. So it's like to understand the chanting names of Manjushri means to understand what Manjushri is. To understand what Manjushri is means to understand the wisdom realizing emptiness. And then, of course, to understand the wisdom realizing emptiness depends upon realizing ultimate truth, emptiness. So then, whoever does not understand the body of a Vajra holder does not understand the mantrayana. So the body of a Vajra holder there means the exalted wisdom body of a Vajra holder. So it means basically the mind realizing emptiness, which is completely free from obscuration and free from conceptuality, of course. So to understand the mantrayana, one has to understand the mind realizing emptiness. And this is the reason you see, in every tantric practice begins with, a mantra like Om Swava Shuddha Savadama Swava Shuddhoham. You dissolve everything into emptiness, and then out of that arises, the practice. So as His Holiness Dalai Lama often says, without an understanding, Tsongkhapa, without understanding of renunciation, bodhicitta, and then especially emptiness, a wisdom realizing emptiness, then to say one's practicing tantra is just a joke. It means nothing. It won't go anywhere. So then finally says, whoever does not understand the mantrayana will circle in samsara because they will be bereft of the path of the Bhagawan Vajradhara. So that's a little difficult. I mean, you could debate with that because clearly, like to be free from samsara, one doesn't need to practice tantra. So I'm not sure what exactly that means. Maybe it means they'll never, I mean, it would make more sense to say whoever does not understand the mantrayana will never achieve full enlightenment, right? Because that's true. Anyway. And then Samdha Rinpoche quotes from Gyalwa Gendin, Gyalwa Gendin Gyatso. So I misspoke earlier. So I think the most extensive and most highly regarded commentary on chanted names of Manjushri among the Gelugpa scholars is by this Gyalwa Gendin Gyatso. I believe he's the third Dalai Lama. If anyone knows better, please point out. Gyalwa Gendin Drup is the first Dalai Lama. The second one, I'm not sure. Gyalwa Gendin Gyatso, I believe, is the third. But anyway, so he's the one, he's composed like a 300 plus page commentary on chanting names of Manjushri. And he says, just as glorious Guhya Samaja is the root of all classes of Tantra and the treasure chest of all classes of Sutra, just so is chanting the names of Manjushri. So he's saying of the Guhya Samaja Tantra, it's the root of all classes of Tantra, means it contains the essential meaning. And by understanding that, one can understand all the other Tantras. And it's not only the essence of all the Tantras, but it's the treasure chest of all classes of Tantra. So it means it contains the essential meaning of all the Tantras. And then he says, just so is chanting the names of Manjushri. So before I started preparing for this session tonight, I hadn't read much about chanting names of Manjushri. I didn't know much about it. So I didn't realize how important it is. But also, it's held in such high regard by the Tibetans that in the Kangyur, the collected works of all the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha that were translated into Tibetan, which contain both sutras and tantras. So in the Kangyur, in the section on the tantras, what contains all the tantras, the chanting names of Manjushri is the very first text in that collection. So you have to imagine the Kangyur, that collection of works, is compiled by and collated by early Tibetan scholars. At that time, I believe Shakya scholars, but also Lotsawa Rinchen Zampo had a lot to do with it, I believe. But I mean, and it was kind of refined through time. But I didn't realize, and it shows how highly this text was regarded by the past Tibetan masters, that among all the tantras that the Buddha taught, Heruka, Yamantaka, Guhya Samaja, Hevajra, Vajrakiliya, all those, among all of those, the chanting names of Manjushri is the very first work in the first volume of the collection of all the tantras. So clearly it's a sign that it's considered essential among all the tantras. And then Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, also it is said that chanting names of Manjushri contains all four classes of tantra in a way that Kalashakra does. So it contains um, essential points of all four classes of tantra. Okay, and then so here's the commentary I'm mainly using by the 37th Gandhitripa, Gendin Rinchen Gyaltsen, who lived from 1571 to 1642. So remember, Lama Tsongkhapa passed away, showed the aspect of passing away in 1419. So this is about 150 years after Tsongkhapa that he lived. And he's from Sera Monastery. So he says that chanting names of Manjushri is a supreme is a supreme method for quickly achieving full enlightenment during one brief lifetime of this degenerate age, as indicated in verse 166. Yeah, so he's again saying because it's only in dependence upon highest yoga tantra that one can achieve full enlightenment, go from being an ordinary being to a fully enlightened being in one brief lifetime of this degenerate age. So he's saying that chanting names of Manjushri shows this supreme method to quickly become enlightened. In verse 166, so this verse I wasn't very satisfied with the way it was translated, so I retranslated it. Anyway, in the version Ryan Cullen, he translated as, and so the aims of helpless mundane beings who seek the fruits of perfect liberation, justice taught in the Maya Jala, is the noble path that leads to excellence. So remember, Ganden Tripa, he's Gindan Rinchen. He's quoting this to establish that, yeah, this is a supreme method to achieve enlightenment in one short lifetime. So another way to translate it would be, for those protectorless transmigratory beings who seek the results of perfect liberation, this great meaning is taught for the achievement of our total complete enlightenment. Right? So he's saying, ordinary beings who are, circling in samsara, who seek perfect liberation. The perfect liberation means full enlightenment. This great meaning, so the great meaning of this, chanting names of Manjushri, is taught for the achievement of our total complete enlightenment. So by understanding the meaning and practicing this meaning, one can, quickly become fully enlightened. So the Ganden Tripa is interpreting that to mean can become fully enlightened in one short lifetime of this degenerate age. Okay, so remember we're talking about, what are we talking about? The qualities of this text. So then Samdha Rinpoche, we'll go back to Samdha Rinpoche. He says, so he points out, when Buddhism flourished in ancient India, understanding the names of chanting the names of Manjushri was held as a mark of understanding all treatises on Tantra. And this is revealed in the life story of Chandragoman when he first entered Nalanda. So roughly the story is that, Chandragoman, because of course he was a layman, and a lay person. And so, when he went to go study at Nalanda Monastery, ancient Nalanda Monastery, there were four gates on each of the four directions. And then there was a group of scholars whose job was to man each of the four gates and then interrogate anyone who wished to enter. And so Chandragoman approached one of the gates and then asked to enter to be able to study there. And then they asked him, what are your qualifications? And apparently he said, I've memorized and can explain the chanting names of Manjushri. And then they took that and I'm sure they must have examined him about that, but they took that as a sign that he's really a profound scholar in Tantra. So Samdha Rinpoche gives that story as kind of evidence of the importance was given to this work. And then he also says, for these reasons, so it was given the esteemed place as the first text in the first volume on Tantra in the Kangyur by early Tibetan scholars. And then Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, many lamas in the four traditions recite this text every day. And then Rinpoche goes on, you can look on the Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive if you like. He goes on to tell stories about some of his own teachers, especially Trulshik Rinpoche, who kept the text on his pillow, on his bed, and would recite every day. And then Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, I believe. And then, yeah, he tells stories about also, um, I think one of Geshe Zopa's teachers, Geshe Zopa in Madison, Wisconsin, one of his teachers, and then also about Khyentse Rinpoche Losang Tsering, um, and Khyentse Rinpoche Donyo, who also taught at Madison, Wisconsin for some time. That he was saying, Khyentse Rinpoche Donyo, I'm sorry, I don't remember his full name, but one of the benefits of chanting names of Manjushri is it makes the mind very clear and sharp, and one's able to remember very well. So Rinpoche was speaking about what an incredible memory Khyentse Rinpoche Losang Tsering and Khyentse Rinpoche Donyo, similar to the current Gantrib Rinpoche, Khyentse Rinpoche Losang Tenzin. His mind is incredible. Um, I don't know if he chants the names of Manjushri every day, though. If someone might, if one of you know, please speak up. Anyway, it's commonly done to recite it every day. So then some of the benefits. So these are all from Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Benefits that Rinpoche um, explains about chanting this prayer. You know. And that teaching that Rinpoche gave on chanting names of Manjushri in 2007 in New York. Yeah, Rinpoche made also at that time gave the oral transmission and made a recording. And he says it's good to play the recording so that you can hear it, other animals can hear it, and then gradually learn the words. But he says because some of the benefits are you develop wisdom and great powers of memory, and then causes incredibly powerful purification, and one collects inconceivable merits. And that it is said that the bodhisattvas also descend and bless your mental continuum. And it kind of uses the logic because this teaching at this time was requested by the bodhisattva Vajrapani and a whole entourage of Vajrapanis, other aspects of Vajrapani. And so when we recite the prayer, then they're pleased and they descend and bless our continuum and protect us. And then, Vajrapani, wrathful male and female deities, Brahma, Indra, and so forth, and the Nagas and Devas of the white side protect you all day and night. So if you protect this prayer, if you recite this prayer, another benefit is that. And then you purify all your negative karmas and gain a higher rebirth. You remember your past lives because the more the mind is purified, the more we can see, have clairvoyance and see into the future and the past. And then one is never separated from bodhicitta, which is very important. And one's not separated from the right view of emptiness. And then finally, you're quickly able to complete the work of collecting the merit of wisdom and the merit of fortune and to achieve enlightenment. Yeah, so if you want to know more about Rinpoche speaking about those benefits, check the Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive. But there's other many, kind of benefits Rinpoche speaks about in relation to, also like reciting the Golden Light Sutra, reading the, ways the Bodhicharyavatara and other practices. With a special emphasis on wisdom. Well, actually, I wanted to say here at the outset, because this I didn't put in the outline, because a friend recently asked me why. I'm going to close this. Why? Because chanting when a great lama passes away, then the advice to create cause for them to quickly return, show the aspect of returning in human form to continue teaching. One advice commonly given is to recite the names of Manjushri, 10 the names of Manjushri. So a friend asked me, well, why is that? Why this prayer in particular? So I hadn't heard an explanation of that before. So luckily, Yangtze Rinpoche is visiting Land of Medicine Buddha. And I went and asked Yangtze Rinpoche just the other day. And he said it's because Manjushri is the Buddha of wisdom. So by chanting this prayer related to Manjushri, it creates a cause for like mental clarity and illumination, right? So then, because in order to find the unmistaken reincarnation, requires clearly being able to identify, to find, like it's like looking, around, you lost something at night and you're looking around for it. You need a torch to be able to illuminate the space, to be able to find what you're looking for. So he's saying like that, like because reciting this prayer, which invokes the blessing of Manjushri, or it helps to create mental clarity and wisdom, illumination, then create a kind of dependent arising to be able to find and clearly identify and connect with the unmistaken reincarnation of the Guru. Mhm. Okay, so then how to actually practice the text. And again, this advice primarily comes from Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So first, of course, bodhicitta motivation. And I just gave Rinpoche, so I just cited here one paragraph from Rinpoche's extensive instruction, how to generate the motivation, but most of you will be familiar with it. So Rinpoche says, so think, I'm reciting on behalf of the numberless hell beings from whom I received all my numberless happiness of the three times, past, present, and future, including liberation and enlightenment, are most precious and most kind. I must free them from all their suffering and its causes and bring them to full enlightenment by myself alone. And then Rinpoche, in that teaching, he goes on to, basically say the same thing with regard to all beings of the six realms and Bardo beings and those who have recently passed away. So, of course, I mean, I don't need to say a lot about this. All you know the importance of generating, very pure, very clear mind of bodhicitta at the beginning of any practice. Thinking to do that practice on behalf of all sentient beings. And then the second, Rinpoche says, making the four types. So while one's reciting the chanting names of Manjushri, one can think one's making the four types of charity, and especially the charity of Dharma. So as you'll see below, Rinpoche encourages us to imagine ourselves surrounded by countless sentient beings, imagine ourselves emanating countless forms, and then imagining we're giving a Dharma teaching. So you can apply the same to any Dharma, practice of reciting a sutra that you do, to imagine that you're actually teaching the Dharma to others, thereby giving the gift of Dharma to others. And then the other of the four types of charity, the other is giving protection, giving loving kindness, and giving material support. Mhm. And then a piece of advice Rinpoche got from Kirti Center Rinpoche is that Kirti Center Rinpoche advised, when you recite texts such as Arya Manjushri Namasangati, you can think of the four unimaginable things. Then he says, so imagine immeasurable Buddhas and Bodhisattvas surrounding the place. So equal in number to the atoms of all the universes in the 10 directions, right? So an unimaginable number of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, imagine them surrounding. And then imagine, sorry, I misspelled this, immeasurable emanations of oneself. So imagine you yourself emanate, innumerable bodies equal in number to all the atoms of the universe in 10 directions. And then imagine you're surrounded by immeasurable sentient beings, right? And then finally, imagine immeasurable nectar beams are emitted from the Buddhas and purify you and all the countless sentient beings. So he gives the instruction while we're reciting, kind of try to think in this unimaginable, kind of vast, expansive way of there being countless Buddhas present, countless emanations of oneself reading the sutra, just as like the instruction when you're doing prostrations, and then countless sentient beings around, and then countless those beings, all those sentient beings being purified by immeasurable nectar beams emitted from all the Buddhas, through the force of the recitation. And then think that the Buddha is in front of you and is giving a teaching of those words, right? So that's another way you can think. Think that the Shakyamuni Buddha is actually in the space in front and he's giving you a teaching. And then finally, this mantra to that Rinpoche, it says part of the morning practices, transforming suffering into happiness. It's a mantra Rinpoche advises to recite at the beginning of every day, and especially at the beginning of before reading or reciting a text. Tayata Om Dari Dari Bandare Swaha. Cite 7 times. Okay. 6:30 to 8. Any questions so far? about any of that? Okay, I don't see any. Anyway, you can just unmute yourself. I don't know if you can, but you can type in the chat if you have a question. Then, okay, so then I thought just to put here how to conclude the recitation practice so that, no matter what we get through tonight, at least when you recite in the future, then you can try to remember these ways of generating a positive motivation, um, and the ways of thinking, as you recite, to collect the most extensive possible merit in this mantra to use. And then at the end, at the conclusion of when you recite the prayer, then, okay, so this I wanted to point out the innermost essence of the Arya Manjushri Tantra. I'll list a few times. So this is a text that FPMT, I believe, sent out. Okay, hold on. But I'm not sure many people took notice. So I just want to make sure you're aware of it and can use it. And maybe, I don't know, well, I can upload it to the chat box in just a minute. But if Sue, if you have it or if someone else has it, you can also upload for me. But I'll just show you. So there's this text, the innermost essence of the Arya Manjushri Tantra. You can find on the FPMT website, I'm sure, where it discusses, this current practice of reciting. It's there. But it was recently translated by my dear friend and colleague, Venerable Tenzin Namjong, and just published like this year, I believe, or earlier this year. So it's very fortunate. So Venerable Namjong told me that, yeah, that he was told by another monk, Venerable Gyalten Lekton, uh, Rinpoche, whom Rinpoche gave the advice to recite chanting names of Manjushri regularly, that at the end of chanting names of Manjushri, the full thing, then at the end you recite this uh, innermost kind of names of Manjushri just a few times. Of course, you can do more, but so the practice is generate positive motivation, and then chant the names of Manjushri, and then at the end recite this a few times, and this is equivalent to chanting the names of Manjushri. Um, I forget what it says in the colophon. At least one, if not many times. Let's see. What does it say in the colophon? See, this is just very short, no? Just a few verses. Yeah, it is said that each recitation of this text, which Guru Pema bestowed to Jomo Shel Sedron, is equivalent to the recitation of expressing the names of Manjushri. So yeah, so one recitation of this short part is equivalent to reciting the whole thing. But Rinpoche says, yeah, so recite the whole thing first, and then recite that short part. There, I'll try to upload it in the chat now. Although I don't know if I can do that when it's still open in my thing, computer. Oh, uh-oh. I have to sign in first to do that. Okay, forget it. I'm not going to upload it. I have to sign in to do it, and it's a bit of a hassle. So I don't want to leave you guys just sitting around. Anyway, you can find it on FPMT website. Okay, so switch back to this. Okay, so then recite Chanting names of Manjushri, and then the innermost essence of the Arya Manjushri Tantra a few times. And then after that, after the recitation, then you do dedications. So I'm not going to explain how to dedicate. You all can find plenty of instruction. And then immediately chant the names and mantras to multiply the merit. So they're multiplying mantras or prayers to multiply the merit. Found it like the end of the FPMT prayer books. So that's Rinpoche's instruction. Conclude by chanting the innermost essence, then make extensive dedication or whatever dedication, and then do the multiplying prayers or mantras to multiply merit at the end. Okay. So that's kind of all the preliminary things. And then now this explanation of the actual text. So this will take the rest of the sessions that we have. So first of all, in the text, explanation of the text is the context. Where was this taught? To whom and when? So it says the text was taught in Amarvati at the end of the, what is it, net of illusion. It's a Mahayana Mahayoga, so the net of illusion is a Mahayoga, means highest yoga tantra, a tantra in 16,000 parts. And this is from the chapter on the net of samadhi, which I believe is the last chapter in that text, the concluding chapter. And then, so it was taught again to these Shambhala kings, the same who were the audience for the Kalachakra Tantra being taught. And then they took it back to the kingdom of Shambhala, which some say is like the current day Peshawar Valley, part of the Gandharva kingdom in Pakistan. Yeah, but then so this transmission of this teaching was kept there until it was, so thereafter was hidden in Shambhala and transmitted by the kings from there from Dalazampo down to Kulika Pundarika, who composed a great commentary on it called the Stainless Light Commentary. So that's the commentary I quoted from above. I think this Kulika Pundarika, I think he goes by different names because he's also named like Dalazampo by Sundar Rinpoche. That I don't understand fully. And then comes explanation of the title. So this is again from the commentary by the 37th Ganatripa, again in Rinchen. So first he just explains the meaning of the Arya. So in Tibetan it's Pakpa. So in Tibetan, Arya Manjushri is Pakpa Jambea, Papa Jambea. In the way it's translated in English is shall we scroll? The noble Manjushri. So Arya or Pakpa is translated as noble, because generally an Arya being is a being who has directly realized emptiness, right? So someone who's directly perceptually realized emptiness or directly perceived emptiness. At the time they initially, directly perceive emptiness, they enter the path of seeing, and they become an Arya being at the same time, right? So that's why. So an Arya being, in the broadest sense, is a being who's directly realized emptiness. So that's one meaning of the word Arya, but here he gives a different gloss. He says, here, Arya, so in the name of the title, Papa Jambayang, let me see. What is the name of, let's just look at the name of the title in Sanskrit first. In English. So Tenzin, so in the language of India, Arya Manjushri, so there's Arya Manjushri Nama Sangati. So Arya is a noble one, Manjushri is Manjushri, Nama is name, Sangati must mean chanting. And Tibetan, Pakpa Jambel Kitsen Yandapara Jopa. And then in English, chant the names of the noble Manjushri. Yandapara Jopa. So yeah, in explaining the title, then Gendin Rinchen says, Arya means that Manjushri abides in a meditative equipoise beyond the extremes of samsara and nirvana, and free from obscurations adhering to them. And this is evidenced by these two lines from verse 85. It says, completely free of every obscuration having achieved equality sky-like. So Manjushri, yeah, so it means Manjushri abides at a meditative. So it's calling Manjushri an Arya means that basically that he's directly realized emptiness, right? So he abides in a meditative equipoise beyond the extremes of samsara. So the extreme of samsara means being, under the power of the afflictive emotions and karma, such that you uncontrollably take rebirth in samsara. So that's the extreme of samsara. So he's free from, means because of his wisdom, and he's free from the ignorance that gives rise to the afflictive emotions and karma that bind one in rebirth, through the force of those disturbing energies. So he's both free from that, and then being free from nirvana. So he's free from the extremes of samsara and nirvana. So what does it mean to be free from the extreme of nirvana? It means that, although he himself is not in samsara, he doesn't just abide in a state of peace, that lasts more or less infinitely, within which one doesn't benefit sentient beings, right? So that's often described as a fault of those who follow the vehicle of hearers or solitary realizers, is that where they strive to just merely eliminate for mere nirvana. They strive merely for a state which is free from ignorance, and not under the control of afflictive emotions and karma, but from within which they don't work to benefit sentient beings, and they haven't fully developed their capacity to benefit sentient beings. So that's considered a kind of sometimes it's called the extreme of peace, or the extreme of nirvana. So it's through the force of wisdom, one's free from the extreme of samsara, and through the force of great compassion, one is free from extremes of nirvana. Right. So it's indicating that Manjushri possesses both very high degree of wisdom and compassion. To say that he's completely free from every obscuration, having achieved. So also that he's free from every obscuration means, the afflictive obscurations and the non-love obscurations, and having achieved equality sky-like. So generally, oftentimes when you speak about the sort of equality that's like the sky, it means seeing the one taste of all phenomena as being empty of inherent existence, right? Because the emptiness of inherent existence is the common nature of all phenomena. So to abide in equipoise wherein one realizes that is to have kind of a sky-like equality. So that's the meaning of Arya, to be free of all obscurations, and then free of extremes of samsara and nirvana. And then the meaning of Manjushri. So here we can really expand our idea of what Manjushri is. Um, um, yeah, so he speaks about 5 different Manjushris, right? There's 5 different ways to think about what Manjushri is. So, and this applies to the whole prayer. So when we say chanting the names of Manjushri, what do we mean? So ordinarily we think, oh, there's this guy, Manjushri, who's got an orange body and has a sword and looks about like he's 16 years old, and we're talking about him. But actually, of course, he's the embodiment of all the Buddha's wisdom, right? But that wisdom realizes the ultimate nature of all phenomena. So all of those, the ultimate nature of all phenomena, the wisdom realizing that, and then this kind of deity that embodies that, are all Manjushri, right? So first he talks about the natural causal Manjushri. So this is speaking more about emptiness. The celebrated, and this is verse 157 and lines 3-4. It says, the celebrated source of all endowments, supreme among the glorious Manjushri. So here, yeah, maybe I misspoke to say it's the nature. So the celebrated source of all endowments. So it's saying, this, you could think like the wisdom understanding emptiness is the source from where all, positive qualities of an Arya being, of a Buddha, where they all arise from. Or another way one could think about it is like it's because all phenomena are empty of inherent existence that it's possible to generate wisdom knowing that, and possible then to purify all obscurations, right? So you could think of, the source of all endowments in the objective way, the object that's realized by the most profound wisdom, or in a subjective way, that mind which realizes a wisdom, or both, right? So the celebrated source of all endowments, supreme among the glorious Manjushri. And then he also says, so here there's this structure you might have heard in the Gelupa, not so much talked about, it's more common in the Enigma Kagyu to speak about, the Buddha's teachings in terms of the base, the path, and the result, right? The basis, the path, and result. So here he's talking about the basis, and then the second as the path of meditation, and then third as the final result. So you can talk about the basis Manjushri. So if you think about the base, that's more talking about just the natural um, way of existing of all phenomena, right? So it's more about emptiness, the ultimate nature of all phenomena as being the very base for everything else to arise from within emptiness. And then the path of meditation, and he doesn't cite from the prayer here, but is the path of realizing that ultimate nature, deepening one's understanding, one's wisdom, realizing, the truth of how things oneself and others exist. And then the result, of course, is enlightenment. The final result in Manjushri is the omnipresent made of the five wisdoms. So the mind, the omniscient mind of a Buddha, which pervades all of space, and which is in essence the five wisdoms. So we'll speak more about the five wisdoms below, but let me see if I can think of, well, the English terms, I'm usually thinking of it in Tibetan, not English, but there's like the mirror-like wisdom, wisdom of individual discrimination, wisdom of accomplishing aims, the wisdom of like the Dharma sphere, and what's the one I'm missing? The wisdom of, let's see, mirror-like, individual discrimination, Dharma sphere. Oh yeah, wisdom of equality or equanimity is the fifth. Uh, yeah, so the resultant Manjushri is embodiment of those five wisdoms as the enlightened mind. And then the Manjushri that appears to pure disciples. So that's like, think of like Lama Tsongkhapa having direct visions of Manjushri appearing and speaking to him. And other lamas also, who's Lama Tsongkhapa's teacher? One of Lama Tsongkhapa's teachers who had direct visions of Manjushri from the time he was a boy. Lama Umapa, right? So that's another aspect like Manjushri, the aspect that appears to those with pure minds. And then the Manjushri that appears in its own aspect. So yeah, that I don't know what the explanation of that is. The Manjushri that appears in its own aspect. It's like not Manjushri as is appearing for the benefit of a disciple, but it's more like the nature of Manjushri himself. It's like the nature of that wisdom mind. I mean, you can kind of think about this in terms of, because a Buddha's the four bodies, like I was talking about the four bodies of a Buddha earlier. The form bodies, it's like that kind of appearance is for the purpose of benefiting disciples. Whereas a Buddha, for their own purpose, it's just their mind and their nature of being empty of inherent existence. So the wisdom mind of a Buddha and their emptiness of inherent existence, that doesn't appear to other disciples. That's just kind of what they are. You can think about it that way. And then you can see my outline has run out. Actually, I think I just didn't copy paste. I have a bit more I can say, but let me check. Just in my notes. Oh yeah, there's this other nice section. Okay, so but now's the time to ask questions if you have questions. Okay. No questions? Okay. Then I'll just explain one last kind of mm, things that this the Gan Rinpoche Gendon Rinchen explains. Oh yeah, so he talks about that. Found this very interesting. The ways of expressing or chanting, ways of chanting the prayer. I mean, you can't quite say chanting because what he's talking about are not all like vocal things. He's kind of saying ways of expressing the names of Manjushri. And he talks about um, three different ways. Yeah. So he says the first is, and they're kind of like from better to, oh, sorry, actually five different ways. I think yeah, yeah. Let's see, one, two, three, four. No, there's four different ways. Okay, but they're divided into two groups. So the first way is in terms of the profound exalted wisdom, non-dual with the ultimate, right? So he's kind of saying like the very best way to recite Tenzin names on Manjushri is to directly realize emptiness, right? Just know emptiness, generate the wisdom realizing emptiness and abide in that. That's really the best expression of what Manjushri is, which makes sense, right? Um, and so you get a sense here, like you do from many other sutras, that the sutra isn't really just the words on the page, right? The sutra is actually the essence of the most profound wisdom. And what the words on the page are just different ways of trying to lead us to that, to express that. But the ultimate meaning is just that experience of directly realizing emptiness that is beyond words, right? Beyond concepts. Okay, so there's a no. Can you ask by unmuting yourself, or I can ask you on your behalf? What is most comfortable for you? Okay.
Geshe-la,
I am. Someone's asking. I
yeah.
see, I see. How do you actually practice this tantra? Any meditation? Um, yeah, I don't know, actually. That's a good question. And it would seem there are, from what I've read about it. I have read that there are like some people, Tibetan masters and maybe Indian too. I don't know. One of the most prominent ancient Indian commentaries. That's another point, actually, I didn't mention. Sundar Rinpoche was saying one indication of, the high regard with which this tantra was held in ancient India was that at a time when the teachings on Buddhist logic, Dignaga, Dharmakirti, when Buddhist logic was kind of at its heyday in India, was part of the rich, philosophical discourse of Buddhist and non-Buddhist. That at that time, so when people had a very critical, sharp mind applying, skepticism and reason to different aspects of Buddhist teachings, at that time there were many commentaries, many ancient Indian commentaries composed about chanting names of Manjushri. So it shows that those who were considering it, they very carefully, after having thought about it very carefully, they had very high regard for it. But in some of the commentaries, it does say, yeah, there are some kind of ways of what do you say, distilling like a sadhana practice from chanting names of Manjushri, but I don't know of any yet. Maybe before next session or the next, I can try to look up and find out more about that. But I don't really know yet. So I don't know any specific meditation related to that. There are many meditations related to Manjushri in general, and they're all kind of related to this. Okay, then I see, what is it, Dida? You have your hand raised?
That is correct. You said my name correctly. Thank you, Geshe-la. I have a request, and I was wondering if you could read the text after 162. I have no idea how to pronounce any of these words.
Oh, is that the mantra part?
Yes. I mean, some of them I can, others it's like, I don't know. It's on page 28.
Okay.
I'd love to hear it, please. Thank you.
Okay. 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 I'll do my best, but I also haven't received like an explanation,
Okay.
Um, of how to pronounce the mantra. So I'm just, based on my experience with other mantras, just doing the best I can. But, I think with mantras, there's like a commonly told story about during the time of the 13th Dalai Lama, I believe, there was one old Tibetan man doing, circumambulations around the Batala Palace in Lhasa and reciting the mantra of one deity. I don't remember which deity. I think it was like the white umbrella deity or something. And he had such pure faith and reciting with such devotion that he had direct vision of the white mandala deity above his head. And so the 13th Dalai Lama heard about this and asked to see him. So called him up to his quarters and said, what's the mantra you're reciting? And then he told him, and then the Dalai Lama said, oh no, you're reciting it wrong. You should be reciting it this way, and corrected his pronunciation. So then he got doubt about, oh no, I'm not doing the practice right. I'm not pronouncing it right. So he got doubt about it. And then it said he couldn't see the deity anymore. No.
Okay.
So the main thing, whenever you recite a mantra, of course, we should try to pronounce it as best we can. But the main thing is, and if you can, listen to one of your own teachers recite it and recite it that way. But the main thing is to have faith and just do the best you can, and then have confidence that that's good enough. That's okay. But anyway, I'll read it out. Om Sarva Dharma Bhava Svabhava Vishuddha Vajra A Prakti Parishuddha Sarva Dharma Yad Uta Sarva Tathagata Jnana Kaya Manjushri Parishuddhitam Upadayati. See, there I'm not sure where to put the stress, no, because I'm not familiar with that word. Upadayati. And I'm sure, sometimes because I used to teach at Chokra Samling in Bangalore, and there's some of the Indian students, they're good at Sanskrit, no? But even they would say they go to a Sanskrit professor to ask them how to pronounce. So to really know this, you need to know, Sanskrit, to know how the syllables, which get the stress and which don't. But anyway, Parishuddhitam Upadayati A Sawa Tathagata Shrudayam Hara Hara Om Hum Shri Bhagavan Jnana Murti Vagishvara Mahavacha Sarva Dharma Gaganamala Saparishuddha Dharma Dhatu Jnana Garba Ah. Something like that.
Thank you.
Sure. And I think this will be recorded and posted. Ram, will this be posted on YouTube or where? I was wondering that actually.
This will go out to everyone that's registered, and I'm going to try and have one of our volunteers get it on LMB's Vimeo account and then send the links to all the registered people once it's up on Vimeo as well. That may take a little longer to get it up onto Vimeo because I don't actually know how to do that. So I'm relying on my helper to be able to get that there.
Okay, great. Anyway, so there'll be recording available at some point. Did you have another question, Dita? You still have your hand up.
No, I just noticed that I had to lower my hand, but thank you
Okay.
for that.
Okay, so the ways of expressing the names. So yeah, so the first is just profound exalted wisdom on non-dual with the ultimate, right? So means a mind directly realizing emptiness is the best way to express the names of Manjushri. And then the second is in terms of extensive words. So it means reciting the prayer. But then within that, there's different ways. So this I found very interesting. You can do by seeing the names as non-dual within one's own mind, right? So one way to recite the prayer is to especially if you have initiation, you can generate yourself in the aspect of a deity. If you have initiation of Manjushri, you can generate yourself in the aspect of Manjushri, and then imagine that, like Rinpoche, like Lama Zopa Rinpoche was saying earlier, like you're giving the teaching, like these words of the prayer are the words arising in your own mind. So not like there's some kind of external words on a page that you're just reciting, but they're non-dual with one's own mind, right? So that's a very beautiful way to kind of imagine reciting the prayer. Generate yourself as a deity and imagine you're speaking these words. And then another is in the manner of secret mantra, So by visualizing oneself as the holy body of Manjushri, so just generating yourself as Manjushri, and then reciting the words. And then another is the way we ordinarily do, by visualizing the holy body of Manjushri in the space in front, and then reciting the prayer by remembering his qualities, right? Because the prayer expresses the qualities of Manjushri. So that's usually what we would tend to do, I think. I mean, certainly me. Is you think, oh, Manjushri is in front, and I'm reading the words about Manjushri in front and remembering, all the good stuff about Manjushri. But to do so, that's if you don't have any initiation, especially if you don't have initiation into Manjushri, then you shouldn't. Then you should do this last way. Visualize Manjushri in front. Just like if you're doing any kind of what is it, performance or action tantra, if you don't have the initiation, then you visualize the deity above the crown of your head. You don't generate yourself as the deity. Anyway, why don't we stop there today? Um, yeah. And then from next week, we'll begin talking more about the actual, kind of from verse 10, talking about the different verses of the prayer. So my plan is just to go through, I mean, I'm reading the prayer every day, at least once a day. And I encourage all of you to do so. I mean, maybe I want to make this plug before we dedicate. It's just that I'm not sure. Um, Yeah, I'm not sure how, from the people I've interacted with, I'm not sure how, I don't know, people realize how important it is to, at this time when Lama Zopa Rinpoche has shown the aspect of passing away. And one of Rinpoche's teachers, one of our own teachers, has given this advice that, in order to create the causes for Rinpoche's incarnation to swiftly return and be able to correctly identify. And then, especially, I mean, sometimes I think I have a bit of a jaded mind having lived at Sarajay Monastery for so long and see so many tukus come and go without really accomplishing much, is it's very difficult, in this time and age. And I think in general, I mean, it's very difficult for students to have the merit to have their teacher show the aspect of reincarnating, and then not only reincarnating, but show the aspect of really studying well, practicing well, having the qualities to again guide their disciples. I mean, it's amazing that His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, it was such a long line of incarnation, first of all, and then so many in that line are such brilliant, scholars, practitioners, leaders, and masters. So I think you can look at the examples of many, incarnate lamas and see how, yeah, oftentimes their reincarnation is not whether it's, I mean, we have to say, if it's our Lama, we have to say it's due to the lack of merit of the students, right? And that really is a huge factor. So if you're a student of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, then it's incredibly important. I mean, the best offering to the guru and the best way to create merit is just follow the advice of the guru, right? But then also, I mean, but now when His Holiness the Dalai Lama, also one of our gurus, has given the advice to practice the prayer, to practice reciting chanting names of Manjushri, at this time, if we don't do it, it's really kind of like, uh, it's kind of like saying, well, I don't really need your advice, you know? So it's really important to do it as much as we can. And that doesn't mean like we have to do, all day, every day, or even every day, but really just, think sincerely, just think about the, the, the way Lama Zopa has touched your life, the way His Holiness has touched your life, and out of gratitude, to them, to recite the prayer in order that you continue that connection, in this life, this lifetime, and future lifetimes up until enlightenment. Right? So it's to me, I feel like it's really a special opportunity to have now that His Holiness has given this advice to be able to, to practice it. Mm. So yeah, I encourage you to all to recite every day. Yeah, and organize in your centers or with friends or just on your own. Yeah. So okay, so let's dedicate the merit now before we stop. So we are rejoiced in whatever merit we've created in this session through our own efforts and through all the other participants. And then, yeah, think of the merit created by Shakyamuni Buddha, who gave this teaching, the Bodhisattva Vajrapani, who requested the teaching, and then all the, enlightened beings, great Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, who've connected us in this day and age, 2023, to, this ancient teaching of the Buddha, and especially our own teachers, Kyabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and others. So rejoice in all the infinite merit they've created. So all this merit gathered together. So just to briefly dedicate, we dedicate especially that the Buddha Dharma flourish, and that Kyabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche, that, especially from the side of us students, we have the merit and the causes and conditions to be able to see the aspect of Kyabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche showing, unmistaken reincarnation, coming into this world in a physical form, and then, perfectly showing whatever aspect is most beneficial for beings, and, guiding us and others according to the pure teachings of the Buddha, of Sutra and Tantra. And then, of course, may His Holiness the Dalai Lama have a long and stable life, and all of our other teachers. And the purpose of this, of course, is to benefit sentient beings. So may all sentient beings, humans, animals, others of the 6 realms, from the hell realms up to the peak of nirvana, be free from every form of suffering and the cause of suffering, and have every form of well-being and happiness, and all the causes and conditions for well-being and happiness manifest immediately without a second's delay. Okay, thank you all, and hope to see you again next week.
Thanks so much, Geshe-la, and thanks everyone for joining us. See you next week.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Thank you.
Thank